Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, January 28th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. The Super Bowl is today's topic. Isn't it great that we can say that in Kansas City for the second straight year? Today, Star columnists Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam Mellinger joined beat writer Herbie Teope for the first of several conversations over the next week and a half on the Super Bowl. Sam McDowell was on assignment, but he'll be with us next time. We covered several topics about the game, and we finished by examining why offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy was passed up once again on becoming a head coach. The final NFL opening with the Houston Texans apparently is being filled by another former Chiefs assistant, David Culley. So let's get started talking Chiefs and Super Bowl. Hey, good morning from a chilly Kansas City. There I am. All right. Very good. Good morning from a chilly Kansas City. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly program where we talk Chiefs with you, and you get to talk Chiefs with the people who know them the best. We might end up with a full house today, but we're starting with an all-star lineup here. Sam Mellinger left the comfort of his home to come all the way down to the office and be with us today. Melly, what's going on?
Nothing, man. Happy to be here in the house that Blair built.
Herbie Teope is here, I'm told, somewhere. Vahe Gregorian is going to join us in a few minutes, and Sam McDowell is working on some interviews, and he will be with us when he can. So we're here to answer your questions about the Chiefs, about the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Bucks. We're going to talk all about that over the next half hour or so. And I'd like to start where we usually do, Herbie, and that is with we saw an injury report yesterday. I didn't realize we were going to get one of those. And
it was an estimated injury report with approximate participation level if there was a practice. They didn't practice yesterday, neither did the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the teams were required to put out an injury report as if they were on the field. No surprise, they listed Eric Fisher as not participating. Look, it's an Achilles, it's a torn Achilles tendon, which is typically a season-ending injury. So, listing him as not practicing is par for the course. They listed Patrick Mahomes as a projected full participant with the toe injury, so that's always a good sign. But the two names that jump out to me on the list they had yesterday was Willie Gay. Willie Gay suffered a high ankle sprain in the season finale. He hasn't practiced since, but the Chiefs say if they did practice on Wednesday, he would have been limited. The other guy was L'Jarius Sneed. We know he left last week's win over the Bills in the concussion protocol, but had the Chiefs practice Wednesday, he would have been limited. So that's a good sign that he's trending in the right course before the team actually hits the field. The Chiefs will actually be on the field Thursday, so there should be an injury report based on actual participation later this afternoon.
Hey, and Herbie, that leads me into something else I wanted to ask you about, and that is the schedule for the Chiefs. Let's just go through the rest of this week, and it's a little different. It's just like the entire season has been different for the NFL and for all of sports, but as far as the Chiefs practicing, they're going to be at Arrowhead Stadium at the training facility, really through this week and all of next week until they get on a plane and go to Tampa. So just take us through what the Chiefs are going through right now.
Well, look, they mirror last year's schedule before they flew to Miami. I mean, they're going to practice today and likely practice on Friday. Because if you remember, they wanted to get in all the install stuff before they started going off into media commitment. So these next couple of days here for the Chiefs are going to be critical and essential to their game planning before they fly to Tampa. Next week, they'll hit the practice field with media availability Wednesday through Friday before they officially get on that plane and take off for Tampa. My understanding is, and Adam Schefter actually tweeted this out, we had heard grumblings that the Chiefs probably aren't flying to Tampa until Saturday, the day before the game. And Schefter, if I recall, during Sunday's game against the Bills, he tweeted out towards the end that the Chiefs would fly out on Saturday. The Chiefs haven't confirmed that, but, where there's smoke, there's fire. That's probably the plan.
Okay. Well, in a little another piece of estimation news, I looked at the long-range forecast for Tampa, and it's on weather.com. Anybody can go see it. The high on February 7th is 74 degrees, but there's a 55% chance of rain that day, and it's the highest percentage of chance of precipitation over the next 15 days in Tampa. So I don't know, might get a little bit of a wet track in Tampa that day. So, hey, Vahe Gregorian in the house. Well, in his house, unlike Sam Mellinger, who's in the house. Vahe's in his house. Good morning, Vahe.
Good morning, guys. I'm glad to see you two in the big house, and nice to be with you. Sorry I was behind.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, Sam McDowell will be joining us when he can. He is, as we say in the biz, on assignment. And hopefully that assignment ends for him in a few minutes. All right, let's. If McDowell were here, this would be a good time to talk about the line. So I'll just mention that the Chiefs open as a 3-point favorite. The over/under is 56.5, and we'll get into that in a bigger way either when Sam gets here, and certainly when we do future shows on the Super Bowl. So, and one thing we are going to get into a little bit later is just news breaking this morning that a Chiefs assistant has a head coaching job in the NFL. It's not the one you might think. It's a former Chiefs assistant. So we'll get to that in a little while. All right. One thing that we did as a staff earlier this week was come up with some storylines and story ideas for sections that we're going to write and produce and distribute. And sometimes, we bat around ideas for these storylines, but hoping that you guys can help us with some of them as well. Great to get some ideas from you guys with your questions and comments. So one of the storylines that we're going to pursue this week is the Chiefs defense. Steve Spagnuolo get the defense ready for the Tampa Bay Bucs, Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. He's done this before, not only with the Chiefs last year, but certainly with the New York Giants back in about what was it, 13 or 14 years ago, and did it with a great deal of success in both occasions. So, Vahe, let's start with you and Spags and how he seems to get his defenses ready for big games.
Yeah, well, for sure, and particularly against Brady, Patriots, however you want to frame it. What's interesting? I mean, I'm sure obviously strategy is part of it, and understanding what he's doing. Sometimes you get a guy's number, and you think maybe there's a chance he's got a little kryptonite for Tom Brady. We'll see. I mean, I every game takes on its own personality, but I think for those of us sort of watching up close, which is a lot of people watching this show right now too, I think we've seen his creativity go up a notch in a lot of ways as he's gotten more and more not comfortable with his defense, but I mean, as he understands his personnel through a full year and a half now, 2 full seasons, and I just love the way they're coming up with the creative blitzes. I think I could be wrong. I know Sam Mellinger and Sam McDowell will typically get back into the tape, and Herbie too. I don't think they've gotten burned by blitzes. I think their blitzes have been really effective, and I think that's been part of what has gotten them here, and part of what will be a really interesting subplot in this game against the Bucs.
Yeah, don't you think one of the storylines, Melly, is it doesn't seem to matter. In fact, it works in the Chiefs' favor when opposing defenses get some pressure on Mahomes. But just the opposite is true with the Bucs and Tom Brady. You get pressure on Tom Brady, and his numbers go down. Right, his QB rating, just as we've seen it. We saw it in when the Chiefs played the Tampa Bay in the regular season. Seen it all year with him. When the Chiefs get defensive pressure, and they get it through blitzing, right? This is not a defense that gets a lot of pressure with its 4-man rush. But when they bring Tyrann Mathieu, when they bring Sorensen, or as we've seen the last few weeks, L'Jarius Sneed, they can really disrupt the quarterback. And in Tom Brady, you don't have a running threat.
Yeah, no, exactly right. I mean, for a long time, the book on beating Brady is sort of like what we've been talking about with Mahomes. It was like you got to get pressure with 4, which is sort of the holy grail of football anyway. I don't think it's that narrow. I think you can blitz Brady a little bit if you can end up getting there. But the problem is, like, Tom Brady is really smart, and he's seen everything. So the disguises, sort of the standard for the disguises is much higher than it is against Josh Allen. No offense to Josh Allen, but, third year, whatever, versus is Brady in his 21st season? Like, I think 19th full season, something like that. It's just, he's seen everything. There's nothing you're going to bring to Tom Brady that he's going to be like, whoa, haven't seen that before. So, you've got to disguise well. And the Chiefs are pretty well equipped. I mean, their blitzes, I think this is what Vahe was just alluding to. Their blitzes against the Bills were incredible. Now, they did seem to, I don't think this was universal, but they did seem to always go arm side, to prevent Allen from, scrambling out to his strong side to throw. I don't know that it matters with Brady because he's not going to scramble out to throw, but he will have a better chance of reading what you're doing than Josh Allen did.
How about Brady, 30th in QB rating when under pressure this season? He's number 5 in QB rating when not under pressure. I believe it would behoove the Chiefs to get a little pressure on Tom Brady. I thought they were. I thought they were outstanding doing that in the middle of that AFC Championship game. At the end, things are a little bit different when Bills are in desperation mode. But when the game was won, then in the second and third quarters, I thought the Chiefs' defense was outstanding. Tyler Hoffman asks, Herbie, will we get playoff Sammy Watkins back?
The $1 million question was Sammy Watkins. Look, he's been out from suffering the calf injury in week 16. He's put in a limited practice last week, and also the projected estimated practice for Wednesday's report was limited. And we'll have to wait and see. I hate to drop the old Andy Reid line there. We'll see. But that's with him. It's virtually true. They're going to take that day by day, week by week. And Watkins, the Chiefs haven't really missed him over these last couple of days. He had some of these players are stepping up. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, obviously back-to-back 100-yard receiving efforts in 2 straight games in the playoffs. Byron Pringle played a lot of snaps against the Bills, and he had a pretty productive day. McCole Hardman, even though he had the muff punt, they found ways to get him involved with that 50-yard run. So, of course, you'd like to have Sammy Watkins in the lineup, but as of right now with his injury status, you're just going to have to wait and see.
Blair, I took that question to be playoff Sammy, not Watkins, but Mellinger and McDowell keep raising their game, and they have been.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Hey, so Brian LeBurge asked about the offensive line. Look, we talked about Eric Fisher, of course. We're not Mitchell Schwartz ain't walking through that Super Bowl door, and neither is Eric Fisher. And LDT's not coming back for a game. So that really is one of the under the radar stories of this Chiefs' success throughout the season. Really, when you talk about it, starting with Kalichi Osemele going down in, was it week 4, I believe it was, and
it's a Raiders game, yeah.
Yeah, Raiders, the loss. And it's just been amazing to see this offensive line hold up the way it has. So, Herbie, what do they do in offensive line-wise? Are we going to see Stefan Wisniewski be the new starter and kicking Andrew Wiley out to tackle?
I believe that's what you're going to end up seeing there. Remmers obviously is a flexible guy. He's your swing offensive lineman, can play both sides of the offensive line. Actually can play all, the 4 positions there, maybe even center if he had to. But he's probably going to be your left tackle. They've been comfortable with Andrew Wiley. He's had to kick out the right tackle 2 times already this season. He started at right tackle against the Saints back in week 15. And then when Fisher went down against the Bills, that's what they ended up doing. They kicked Wiley out the right tackle and inserted Stefan Wisniewski into the lineup there at right guard. And then the way this roster looks right now, that's probably what you're going to see in the Super Bowl. And I think they're comfortable with that.
Even against Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett, I think that is obviously a storyline to follow next week, and how we're going to see Remmers and Wiley battle those guys. But as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, Herbie, Wiley's been kicked out to tackle this year in some games, right?
Correct. In Week 15 against the Saints. And what gives you confidence there that he should be able to handle either Pierre-Paul or even Shaq Barrett, depending on where they line up. He held his own against all-pro defensive end Cam Jordan for the Saints. So that, I think they should take that game and say, yeah, he can handle elite pass rusher. So that gives you a level of confidence.
Brian Johnson notes that the Chiefs will supplement the offensive line with an extra tight end or running back, quick passes, draws. Andy and the O-line coach, Andy Heck, will figure it out. I agree. I do think if the Bucs get a lot of push and pressure with 4 and beat the Chiefs' offensive line, that spells a little bit of trouble for the Chiefs. That's what the Raiders were able to do and a couple other teams this year. So.
Actually, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, please.
I actually think that Saints game is pretty instructive for how this one may or may not go. Just because I think that the Mike Remmers that we'll get in the Super Bowl will be a better left tackle than Eric Fisher was. That guy was dragging. That's not an insult to his ability at all, but he was playing it. I don't know what the percent was, but he was not moving around very well at all. And Andrew Wiley, you would think, is going to be better now than he was just, kind of a spot start with the preparation. But the Saints got a ton of pressure on Mahomes in that game. And they did it. If you look at their touchdowns, they were all these kind of like gimmicky plays that people get sick of the Chiefs doing in the red zone. They were just like quick passes. There was one where Tyreek Hill did like 3 different motions before the snap. I think they're going to have to do a lot of that because, you never want to have like your backup tackles in a game, but if you could list 5 teams that you definitely don't want to have your backup tackles against, the Bucs would certainly be in that list. This is how they get pressure. So it's something the Chiefs are going to have to change the way that they play. But I do think that when something is this obvious before a game, and it's something that we're talking about that just seems like this flashing light of how the Bucs are going to destroy the Chiefs, it usually doesn't end up that way. Because they've got 2 weeks. Andy Heck is good at what he does. Andy Reid, was Brian LaBerge just mentioned, they will do some quick passes. The problem is if you get into a situation where the quarterback asks, do we have time for Wasp? they may not have time for Wasp in this game. You know what I mean? They may have to do it some other ways.
I think they could have time for Wasp. He just has to throw it higher. Just get it all.
Which you assume he can do.
Yeah, it's just a quick extra to that point. Sam said it, but I do think it's never been a better time to have 2 weeks, whether it's whatever degree you get healthied up in general. But really, I think for a strategist like Andy, I think this plays really well. I think they're going to understand what they have to do. I do know at some point with all the offensive line attrition, you can't keep saying you're going to do more with less. You can only do less with less. But I still think that they'll have strategic mechanism to combat this with that I think will be pretty sound.
If only we had some evidence of Andy Reid's success in an open week or an extra week. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. So what about running back? We've got some questions about running back, and have we seen the last of Le'Veon Bell as in a Chiefs uniform? Is he? What do you think, Herbie? Is he going to with Darryl now with Clyde Edwards-Helaire back and Darrell Williams doing what he's done in the 2 playoff games? Where does that leave Le'Veon Bell?
Well, he's only here on a 1-year contract anyway, so it's it was an opportunity for the Chiefs to bring him to see what he had left. But he's been dinged up with that knee injury. His knee swelled up on him last week after just one practice leading up to his inactive status against the Bills. And, when you got a guy like Darrell Williams, who's now turned into playoff Darrell Williams, and he's had 2 straight solid games. Against the Bills, he played more snaps than Edwards-Helaire and actually outpaced him. He led the team in rushing against the Bills. So I don't think you need to change anything or rush Le'Veon Bell into the lineup if you don't need him, because you've got Darrell Williams right now playing lights out.
I wonder if there's another D. Williams out there in college this year who the Chiefs can sign just for the postseason. Because you're right. I mean, if it's not Damian Williams, it's Darrell Williams, and I've been really impressed with him. I just love the physicality with which he runs. We always talk about how the Chiefs have trouble in going up the middle in short yardage situations, and that's not going to change because the offensive line is what it is. But now they've got a stronger back, behind somebody can help push the offensive line and muscle for an extra yard or two. And as long as he doesn't fumble, I remember he had one game, I think it was at Detroit last year, where he lost a fumble or maybe even 2 fumbles.
Oh, that's right.
Remember? And that was in the one quarter where the Chiefs fumbled 3 times, and I think he had a couple of them. But he's been money. The guy has been terrific. So
I feel like, Blair, in the last couple of weeks, the things that strike me as sort of new and improved and better than we might have expected are. Juan Thornhill getting back to good health and being pretty dynamic. And really, I think that Darrell Williams is an asset I didn't really quite understand they had. I mean, I get that he's been a supplemental help, but I think he can be a factor.
The other thing that I would add to that is their coverage. Their coverage on the back end has been really, really good. These last 2 games. I mean, kind of quiet. I don't know if it's quietly or not. It doesn't matter. But their last 3 real games, Falcons, Browns, Bills, I think have been the best 3 games that the defense has played all season. I mean, I don't know what to do with that game in Denver. That was a weird game. But you know what I mean? Just like all around, taking into account the opponent, quality of opponent and all that, the coverage has been really, really good. Some of the pressures, and Chris Jones and Frank Clark have been better, but some of their pressures are because nobody's open on the back end, and the quarterback's got to hold on to it a little bit.
Well, I'm glad Vahe brought up Juan Thornhill. It was so good to see him back. I know he had the interception, missed interception against Buffalo, but overall, especially for the film watchers, I was reading, he just had his best game of the year. And look, the guy had an ACL tear in week 17 last year, and it takes a year to get over that. I'm not saying they rushed him back, but he was sure he physically felt like he was ready to go in week 1, but maybe it's taken this long for him to be the Juan Thornhill that he was a year ago, and just have full faith and trust in his knee. And but if he is, I mean, if he's what he was last year, in the AFC title game wasn't a fluke for him. What a great sign that is for the Chiefs.
Blair, to your point,
go ahead.
I'll just say real quick, it would be really interesting to try to do a comprehensive sort of tracing of the arc of how they treated his injury. You remember at mid-season, I think it was, there was a lot of like, well, why aren't they playing him? And he's, what's wrong with him? And I think, we could understand in a big picture sense that the injury was still a factor, but it would be really interesting to try to find a way to get behind the scenes at how they approached it for maximum utility, I guess, at this point. Go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just there is some up and down. We saw that especially in the first half of the season where he looked pretty strong one week, and then it was the Chargers game, right, the one in LA, where he really struggled, and then I think the very next week he looked really good in Baltimore. I mean, there's just some up and down element to that. But if that play, and I know he didn't finish it, it would have been a great catch. the interception, but just physically, the turn in the hips and then running with the guy downfield. I mean, that just like physically, that was as good as he's been since the injury. And if that is, if that's where he's at now, like you guys have said, I mean, it's 12, almost 13 months or whatever after the initial tear, then that's a huge thing. I mean, the Chiefs, we can talk about Spagnuolo, and we should, and all these things, but they went from the worst. I mean, that group of safeties in 2018, I mean, it was horrendous. And then they might have had the best pair of safeties in the league last year with Thornhill and Matthew. And if they're back to that, especially against, a team that likes to throw it downfield and has some more than capable receivers who can beat you, even when they're covered. Especially Evans and Godwin, those are kind of big guys that can win in the air. That's a huge thing.
Hey, Blair, one more quick thing about sorry.
Yeah, I wrote about that in early December, some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes with him and why they decided to pull back. It was at the bye week when Steve Spagnuolo had a talk with Juan Thornhill. And Spagnuolo, if you guys recall, admitted they tried to push him a little too soon at the beginning of the year. And then during the bye week, when they sat down and looked at film, is when they realized, he's not at 100%. Even Thornhill at that point admitted that, there were times on the field that he was thinking about his knee. And after the bye week, after the Chiefs decided to pull back on him and let him get his legs under him, is where he started feeling more natural out there, that he was able to react and not think about his knee at the time while he was on the field. So that conversation he had with Spagnuolo during the bye week was huge because they both agreed that they were asking him to do too much. And that's when the decision was made by the Chiefs. Let's pull back on him, because I think it was that game immediately after the bye is when we noticed that he wasn't starting. And then, if I recall, he only played like 10 snaps against the Broncos. But that was the reason why, is because they realized that they were trying to push him too early.
He was a situational guy, right? Isn't that?
There you go, Andy Reid. Remember, because I asked him at the post-game press conference, why did he only get so many snaps? He said, hey, he's situational now.
It also gives them some flexibility with Dan Sorensen too, doesn't it? I mean, he's been such a big play guy in this postseason career with the Chiefs, and he can play a little bit more of a linebacker role than a safety role for the Chiefs. So anyway, it's great seeing Juan Thornhill back, and he'll get to play in the Super Bowl, right? Didn't get to play in the playoffs last year, and will get his Super Bowl. Okay, let's. I want to bring this up. So the Houston Texans looks like they've hired their football coach. It was the last of the 6 openings in the NFL in this cycle. And to me, the longer they were waiting to name a head coach, I just figured, okay, it's going to be Eric Bieniemy. They'll wait till after the Super Bowl and get Eric Bieniemy in. Back for they already had him, I think, back for a second interview, and it's going to finally Eric Bieniemy is going to get his job, head coaching job. No, if the reports are true, and we haven't not confirmed them, but the Texans haven't, unless something's happened while we've been on the air. It is David Culley, who was he was with the Ravens this year, right? But with the Bills previously. Yep. And then with the Chiefs, he was on Andy Reid's original staff here, the wide receivers coach from 2013 through 2016, and then it was Greg Lewis that took over there. So he joins Doug Peterson and Matt Nagy from Andy Reid's Chiefs staff to become an NFL head coach. But it leaves Eric Bieniemy without a job. At least it looks like the coaching carousel will end, and Eric Bieniemy will continue to be the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. That is unbelievable fortune for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think maybe history will tell us misfortune for those teams that did not give Eric Bieniemy a shot at becoming a head coach. Well, so what do we make of Bieniemy and his status? I think first of all, it's all part of the narrative now that he'll be the most qualified coordinator maybe in NFL history that didn't that doesn't have a head coaching position. What else can we say about that? What do you think, Herbie? I know you're probably going to pursue this today when we talk to some Chiefs.
I have to choose my words wisely here, I suppose. But, I know like during the offseason, the NFL made it a point of emphasis on minority hires. And a lot of this came about because of Eric Bieniemy being shunned or shut out last year. Now, granted, of the 7 open positions this year, you had one minority hire in in New York with the Jets, Robert Saleh, the former 49ers defensive coordinator. Now you have David Culley taking over in Houston. But I think the league has to take a look at this once again because it just didn't happen. I'm stunned Eric Bieniemy doesn't have a job. And I know there's some things that say that some of the media talk is, well, maybe he doesn't interview well. I think all of us will agree that even in our college years, there were people who just couldn't take a test well, but the results were there. The players love Eric Bieniemy. So I'm trying to wrap my head around why he can't get an NFL head coaching job. Kudos to David Culley, though. You mentioned his time here in Kansas City, but his time with Andy Reid actually extends all the way back to when Andy Reid first became the head coach in Philadelphia. So from 1999 through 2016, he was under Reid. So, he had a chance to see how Reid did things. He's obviously an offensive-minded kind of guy, but when it comes down to Eric Bieniemy, I'm still stunned he hasn't been hired.
Blair,
these things.
No, go ahead.
These things are often done. Somebody explained it to me in these terms. I'm paraphrasing, and this makes some sense. And look, this is coming from somebody that very much is an Eric Bieniemy fan, right? That wants Eric to get a job. But the point was made that unless you are Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll. I mean, there's a small list of guys that franchises will move mountains to go hire that guy. But after that, it really becomes sort of a matchup of relationships. And do you have the relationship with the GM? Do you know somebody that knows the owner? And the point this person was making, is that for whatever reason, the relationships that Eric has have not lined up well with the jobs that have been open. Now, there have been a ton of jobs open. I think he's interviewed 12 times with 10 or 11 franchises. I know that the Jets interviewed him twice. I don't know if there's another team out there. But, the point was made about, the Jaguars. That's a college, college-heavy market. Urban Meyer makes some sense there, sort of a reboot or whatever. Maybe they've been pursuing Urban Meyer for a few years. That's not a fit for Eric Bieniemy, just in that sort of superficial way. Yeah. And you can go down the list and find reasons. But if you step back, right, and just look at it like a rational human being, it makes no sense at all, because he is, like you just said, Blair, I mean, he is the most overqualified head. If you just look at resumes, I mean, just time put in, success, what people who work with him and for him, both above him and below him, sort of on the totem pole. What they say about him, it's unbelievable. I mean, like, this guy, he checks every single box. And, the two things, he doesn't call plays. Well, Matt Nagy didn't. Doug Peterson didn't. He's got, if you go back, and people kind of, they don't say it out loud, but there's some references to some trouble he got into in Colorado. I think there was a DUI. There was a deal with a recruit or a young player or something like that. Nothing physical at all, but just sort of, like reprimands or whatever. Well, that was like 15 years ago, first of all. Second of all, Urban Meyer's stuff is way worse than Eric Bieniemy's ever could dream of. It's just, it seems like there's excuses like this is why, but once you analyze those reasons, they don't really hold up.
Yeah, and I can't add much to that. You guys have a really thoughtful stance on that, of course. It is, I keep getting back to this thing, like every decision is its own thing, right? Each franchise, each group needs to get what they want, what aligns with what they want. But when you do step back and look at, the tapestry of the whole thing, that's where it's like, this guy's 0 for 12. He's a coordinator on a two-time Super Bowl team, and I think you could actually do a study that would show you the credentials explicitly, tangibly are greater than anyone that's never gotten a head coaching job before. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing that right, but I think who else has had better credentials, right? Just on the resume and on reputation from what people will say about him than Eric Bieniemy. So it's a sad development, really.
One of the other things that's kind of funny is I've heard people say, well, yeah, he's the offensive coordinator, but that's Patrick Mahomes. And that's why – and look, like Patrick Mahomes is obviously, like, terrific. But there happens to be a coach who got fired who had Patrick Mahomes in college and had a losing record and got a head coaching job in the NFL. And Eric Bieniemy can't. Like, there's so many different things that are just like, yeah, you can say whatever you want to make it whatever. But, like, if you just look just a little bit below the surface, none of these things make sense.
One other little twist to this is just thinking about it. And I don't want to be a Pollyanna, but there are a couple of these jobs he's kind of fortunate not to get, I think, maybe.
I think that's, yeah.
And Houston before, and a few months ago, looked like, that looks about right. And now I think our SportsBeat Live today started with a comment. Pardon me for not having it in front of me, but from somebody saying, "Can we just talk about how lucky Kansas City is that these aren't the Texans?" And of course, it's true. And of course, it makes me think that they were the Texans before they came here. But that's a story in itself.
That was from Michael Blair. Love the name, Michael. So. Hey, and David Van Zandt weighed in, said lived in Jacksonville when the Jaguars were born. I think that was 96. Small city for the NFL, but big college football market. It absolutely is. Urban was hired to sell tickets, and I don't doubt that. And to have a crack at Trevor Lawrence. So that's why that happened there. But tell you what, I'd love to have seen Eric Bieniemy with Trevor Lawrence. Develop that young quarterback.
I would love to have seen him in with the Chargers. The team that drafted him, gave him his chance in the NFL as a player. And I know, like, he would have been still in the same division, in the AFC. But my goodness, man, he had a ready-made quarterback in Justin Herbert. They got weapons galore over there, and the Chargers hired Brandon Staley. I'm like, okay. It's just, to me, I agree with Sam. It's perplexing as hell. I always scratch my head on this over the last couple of years.
I've started to wonder, I'm sorry, but just real quick, I start to wonder at what point are you 0 for so many that the next interview is going to be like, I don't know. Nobody else has hired this guy. What did they see? You know what I mean? Like, I just wonder if this works against him, if it starts to work against him in a way. It's just, it shouldn't be like this.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, Sam. I hadn't thought about it that way, but it does remind me of like a house, say in your neighborhood or on your block, or in my case, when we moved from St. Louis, a house that doesn't sell for a while, and then it starts becoming that house. Like, and I really don't know if that's a good parallel or not, but I like the point of what you're saying. I think it's probably a little bit of a factor in this. Like, he wasn't good enough for them, we're not looking at him. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at that.
I think our house was on the market for 12 months before we bought it. We couldn't be happier, guys.
Clark Hunt and everyone, going out of their way to speak volumes of EB's character and his ability as a head coach. And then last week, the eye-opening one to me was Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes says it's crazy he's not getting a head coaching job. Hey, if Mahomes is thinking that, then what are we thinking?
He wanted to say something else too. You could tell when he was asked about that. He kind of paused to think of the word to use. He wanted to say something
his tongue earlier, kind of like what I was doing.
Yeah. Man.
Meanwhile,
one more thing you guys have in common, Herbie.
But meanwhile, the Chiefs retain a hell of an offensive coordinator. All he's done is, be part of 5 straight division winning titles, 3 straight AFC championship game appearances, 2 straight AFC titles, and will be going for a 2nd straight Super Bowl. Not a bad career, and maybe Eric Bieniemy from this point forward just decides to be choosy. maybe if a Lions job comes up, which inevitably it will, in about 3 years, he says, screw that. It's not where I want to be. I don't like the situation. Seems like he interviews for every job, anybody who invites him. Maybe he doesn't do that anymore and just decides there's a certain conditions and situations he's interested in, and he will he won't even put his name up for consideration for some of them. So we'll have to see.
We should do every job interview request like I do radio requests. There we go.
I think. Well, he's not taking that job unless he's paid too. That is one thing he can say.
All right, you guys. Let's wrap it up, and we're going to do so today with our usual thanks, but also some commercial here. What we've got coming up for you. We've got a special section in the Star on Sunday. It's a poster edition. I think that speaks for itself. Look for posters of your favorite Chiefs in that. We have the following Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday, 2 special sections. One is all about Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. The other is a game day preview section. Tomorrow, Mellinger Minutes for Your Ears will be devoted to the Super Bowl. Sam, who you got on as a guest tomorrow?
It's going to be some Chiefs players that are going to graciously stop by for availability at 1:00 this afternoon. I'm going to.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Absolutely. That'll be great. But it's the audio version of the great column that you get every Tuesday this week. SportsBeat KC, the daily sports podcast, will be devoted to the Super Bowl all next week. And, of course, you get great coverage, the best coverage that you can find on the Chiefs and the Super Bowl from these folks right here. Sam McDowell is not with us. He's here in spirit. But Sam Mellinger, Vahe, Gregorian, and the voice of Herbie Teope. So for those folks and for Beth Welsh, who produced today's show, thank you very much. We'll be back with a couple of these shows next week and continue to watch and read the Kansas City Star. Thanks a lot, you guys. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff and everyone who helps make SportsBeat KC happen. Derek Donovan, Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. Tip of the cap to Sam Mellinger, Vahe, Gregorian, and Herbie Teope for Talking Chiefs. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we have another deal for you, especially for those that want to deep dive into the Star's terrific Chiefs coverage, and what a time to join in. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/sportspass2020. That's kansascity.com/sportspass2020. You want more than just sports coverage? Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional national news, sports, and business coverage with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And if you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, send me an email, bkerkhoff@kcstar.com. I'll get you to the right place. So whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Friday with another episode.